Morning, Ron. How are you?
Good morning, Wendy. How are you?
I'm good. I'm Wendy Thompson, and today the DC Spotlight talks to author Ron Ross about a sensitive topic. How do you deal with the grief when you lose a child? Ron has written a powerful memoir titled No Greater Pain: How to Heal When Your Child Dies. Welcome to the DC Spotlight, Ron.
Thank you, Wendy. I'm glad to be here.
Great. So first, let me ask you a little bit about your book. This book has such a powerful testimony on grief. But before we get into the book, let's get some background into your life. So you're
Okay.
a father? So you're a father? How many kids do you have?
I have six children, three boys and three girls. We have a blended family, and my daughter is in heaven, of course. And I have seven grandchildren.
Okay. Are you working?
I'm currently retired. I worked 31 years in the government, the intelligence community. And I've retired now probably 10 years ago.
Okay. Okay. So let's just dive into the book. The book that you've written, can you tell me the title again and give me a little bit about why you wrote that book and tell me a little bit about your daughter, Amanda.
Okay. Well, let me show you the book. The book is titled No Greater Pain: How to Heal When Your Child Dies, Surviving an Unthinkable Journey, and Embracing Grief and Finding Joy. And I think that title and subtitle kind of explains everything that's in the book. My daughter passed 2 years ago. She was 34 years old, and she has a 3-year-old now, a 5-year-old daughter. She was living life happily in South Carolina when I heard that she tragically died uh, unexpectedly. So I decided to write this book to survive my grief. I started journaling daily, and I turned that journal into a memoir, and I turned the memoir into a book because I wanted to help people that have lost their child understand the difficult journey that's ahead, and what they experience is normal because there's many emotions tied to grieving when you lose a child. There's probably 150 different types of emotions, and I think I might have gone through a lot of those. So I wanted to explain my journey of grief, uh, express all the emotions that I went through, and some were very severe. And I wanted to show reflections back throughout the book to show that you can heal in time. It takes a long time to climb this mountain. And there's a lot of expectations and things that are unexpected during a time like this. So I wanted to help bereaved parents understand the journey and see what they're going through so they don't feel like they're going crazy, and help
Yeah.
non-bereaved parents know what to expect when they meet someone who's lost a child.
Okay. So before we even dive into the book, because this book, like I said, it's so powerful. It's raw emotions about what you go through every day. Let's give Amanda her 15 minutes. Can you just tell me what type of child was she?
She was a very playful, happy child. She loved um, people. She was always laughing. She was full of joy. She always cared, even at an early age, about other people and their feelings. And all through her early adult life, she always cared and was so sympathetic towards people that were less fortunate. And she just
Yeah,
was
there's this point in the book where you tell about this homeless person that she met and how, can you tell that story?
yes, she was about 30 years old at the time. She was walking in the park in a park in Maryland here, and she came across a girl that was about 21 years old, and she was crying sitting on the bench. And my daughter Amanda, she went up to her and asked what was wrong, and the young lady said that her parents had kicked her out of the house, and she was homeless, and she was out of the home for a night or two. So my daughter took her uh, to her apartment, and she was very hungry and thirsty. So she took her to her apartment, gave her food, let her take a shower. She gave her some clothes to wear, and she gave her some money that she had. Um, and she took her to a homeless shelter, and she ensured that she could get into the homeless shelter, got her registered in there, and she also took her to a soup kitchen where they provide meals daily for dinner, and she set her up and had her go on her way. But that's the kind of daughter I had. She was always trying to help other people and always trying to care for people that were less fortunate. And she had a heart of gold. And um, it's just been a very difficult journey for me, knowing that she's not going to be here.
Yeah. So can you tell me, I know this is difficult because losing someone is very hard. I've experienced it myself recently, and there's nothing like losing someone you love. But can you tell me what was it like the day your wife told you your daughter was gone? And you don't have to go through the whole experience, but from that day and then the following days, how did your life change?
I remember driving to go to the grocery store, and I received a phone call from my wife. And she said, come home immediately. And I said, what's wrong? And she said, no, please just come home, turn around and come home. I said, is someone hurt? Did something happen? She said, please come home. So she wouldn't tell me on the phone. And I was about a mile or two away. It seemed like an eternity for me to get home. And so when I walked in the door, I saw my wife that was completely uh, distraught and crying emotionally. So I knew I was almost afraid to ask. But she said, Amanda is gone. And
Take your time.
so
It's okay.
so at that moment, my world turned upside down. I actually think the trauma and shock set in. I just fell to my knees and could not control the tears for hours. And at that point, I knew that my life has changed forever because, I mean, I said to her, what do you mean she's gone? Where did she go? What do you mean she's gone? And then my wife said she passed. And it's just a memory that is etched in my mind forever. And unfortunately, it's just, you just have to move forward with that memory. It's just something that will never change. My life turned upside down. I knew that my life was going to be different from that day forward. And I knew that I was changed immediately when I heard that my daughter had passed. It was just crushing. And the intense pain, emotional pain and physical pain was just something that I hope no one, it's just hard to explain the depth of the grief at that moment and the shock. Yes.
So you said that the death of a child brings a parent to their knees.
Yes.
And you said every day, especially in the morning, that's the worst time. Can you tell me what it's been like, especially in the mornings, every day, the grief and how you deal with that?
Well, I look back at that and I have to tell you, and I'll confess this, that the first 90 days, the tears flowed every day, every morning and every night. My body shook because of the trauma. And it was 4 months before I can even utter the words that my daughter had passed. But every morning you wake up and you feel joy for just a moment. Then you realize that it wasn't a nightmare that my daughter had passed. So you go into a spiral of sorts. And
Is that where you feel like you're spinning?
you're spinning, you're just in a fog. The trauma, I think, I honestly feel that, and I've done a lot of research on the brain
Mm-hmm.
when there's a trauma to someone's life like this. And basically, You feel so disoriented, confused, uh, total loss of energy, complete exhaustion, shaking every night. And really, they were sleepless nights for probably 90 days,
Yeah.
very little sleep. So you're exhausted and you just wish the pain would end, and it doesn't. It just takes time. It takes months and sometimes much longer for a parent that goes through something like this, because you
Yeah.
never think it's going to happen to you. And when it does, it's just excruciating pain that you've never felt before.
Yeah. In the book, you said there are a lot of like experiences that you go through, like brain fog and wandering from room to room and just staring out into nothing and being forgetful, not even remembering what day it is. And
That's
I know I mean, I can even attest to that because I'm going through some of the same things, having lost someone in my life too.
I'm so
Um, so how are how are you doing as far as support? Like your wife, I know you were divorced from Amanda's mother and you have your wife now. How are they dealing with it and how are you um handling the support from your family?
I think my wife provided support that saved me in so many ways. She's so patient and understanding and consoling. She actually joined Compassionate Friends for Step Parents to better understand how to deal with the sadness. She saw me with the sadness for a good year every day, and as much as I tried to put on a strong front, she saw me at my weakest moments daily. But I received so much support from her, and my stepchildren were just wonderful, compassionate, understanding, and very generous. I had to try to be strong for my daughter and my son as they were going through quite a bit also. So it's a lot to juggle. But the weight of grief, it does bring you to your knees. And the strongest men and the strongest women, their life changes and it just overwhelms you with the thought that it overwhelmed me with the thought that I would never be able to see my daughter again. And one of the things that I grabbed onto was just believing that I would see my daughter again at some point in
Yeah,
the
you mentioned,
in heaven.
yeah, in heaven, you say?
Yes. I read quite a few books on heaven, Imagining Heaven by John Burke. It's a very good book. It basically describes 100 different people that died, were flatlined, and then came back. Came back. They weren't just in a coma; they flatlined. Their heart stopped, and they came back with incredible stories that were consistent. And it really made me believe more that there is something more after this life here on Earth. So that gave me the hope, and I continue to think that way that I'll be able to see Amanda again. I think many
So,
parents feel that way too.
yes, many do. And how did it affect your faith? Did it shake your faith? Did it strengthen you? Because it could go either way. Some people they lose faith, other people they're strengthened. How did
I
it
would
shake?
say it went both ways. I lost faith. I was very angry inside. How could this happen to me? I guess there was quite a bit of self pity, which isn't a very healthy thing. But why? Why would this happen to me and my daughter, who was just enjoying life and just starting life with her 3-year-old girl, her daughter? And I did lose faith, but I turned to the church. I went to my pastor. I gave him a copy of my book. He mentioned it in his service. I, and I just prayed. Honestly, I prayed just to get past the pain and to try to heal, because that's all you just wish for initially with the trauma, that you just want to have the pain relieved, because it's just so debilitating at first, physically and mentally. You just lose control. I've had, as hard as I hate to admit this, several public meltdowns, just tearing up uncontrollably in front of people.
Yeah.
that were triggered just by memories and just by the stress of it all. It was just difficult to maintain, my composure
Yeah.
several times during the first year.
Yeah, it's hard, especially sometimes I know from personal experience, sometimes you can go into a grocery store and have to leave because it just overwhelms you. The grief just overwhelms you.
And
Yeah.
and for all the bereaved parents out there, there's really no time limit. I think everybody has to experience and do its best for them. There's a lot of times where you don't have the energy to go to family events or activities. Of course, birthdays, anniversaries, and holidays are so difficult. And sometimes the second or third Christmas or birthday is harder than the first because
Yeah.
during
Yeah.
the first year, you're really kind of in a fog and
Hmm.
you're still traumatized really for 12 months. And then you learn to accept the fact that your child is gone. And it really kind of hits home that you're going to have to live the rest of your life without your child. And whether it's your child or a spouse or your parents, I mean, it just depends on the person, your relationship with that person or your child will depend a lot on how long this lasts. But I just know that for me, it's been 2 years, almost 3 months. And I'm just at the point now, it's really the first time I've talked about this and really didn't know how this would all go, but I couldn't have done this a year ago.
Yeah.
You get resilient and you know that your child wants you to live a happy life. And of course they don't want you to be sad.
Yeah.
But I'll
But
tell you,
that's easy. That's easier said than done.
I'll
That
tell you,
is so, it's so the platitudes and I really applaud friends and family for coming and they make their statements and they hug you and they say, she would want you to move on with your life and things like that. Or in my case, he would want you to move on with your life.
yes,
But that's so easy to say, but so hard to live.
so true, Wendy, is so true because grief is a lonely thing. And
Yeah.
because all the friends and family can help you and support you, but at the end of the day, it comes back and it's just a lonely thing because you have to realize it's just you dealing with your own grief and your
Yes.
sadness. And I will tell you that grief, in my opinion, doesn't end. You carry it forward with you. You just have to learn to balance happiness and joy, knowing that you're still sad inside. And that's just the love you have. That's the love I have for Amanda. And I think every bereaved parent will carry their child on their shoulders in memory and strive towards those positive memories. There's really risk at complicated, prolonged grief where you go into a deep depression. I
Yeah.
think for the most part, yet I had complicated grief. I think I had some prolonged grief. I think I avoided deep-seated depression. And you have to kind of do things to try to take care of your health and yourself. You have to do things that I have many things listed in the book and explained in the book, what I went through, what I did to get past some difficult days. And a lot of it is really just sometimes being alone and being able to, as the anxiety and grief builds as the days go by, I just feel that in my case, I had to relieve it. And I always felt better after a good cry. I really
Yeah.
did. Because you know that I know that my daughter's looking down and seeing my pain, but it also, she sees the love. So, there's an understanding that, grief is love and love really does kind of conquer everything. In the end, you start healing and feeling better in the sense that the intensity and the frequency of the emotional episodes, they lessen with time and they're
Yeah.
not as intense with time, but they're still there. And I think they'll always be there. And then you kind of grow from that. It's kind of like I was reading a book where they describe grief in this way. The grief is like a circle and there's a box around the circle. The circle never shrinks, which is grief, but the box around the circle expands because as you grow and learn and become more resilient, you start building a new life. So the box gets bigger, the circle stays the same, the grief is still there, but you start growing into a person that you need to be in a life that's a different normal now. It's a it's not normal like it was before. You can never go back to who you were before. I think
Yeah.
with the loss of my daughter, I've learned to really appreciate many things. And uh, I feel more sadness for people that are less fortunate or going through the same thing. You have that immediate connection with people that have lost a child, especially, or a parent or a spouse. And I imagine losing a spouse would be undeniably awful. And I wouldn't wish that on anybody. And the same with parents. But honestly, I lost my parents many years ago, one after the other, 1 year after the other. They were both about 77 years old. And yeah, I grieved. And I grieved especially more when my mother died, the second, when she died next, because then you're alone. But you realize that they lived a long life.
Yeah.
And, and so you lose the past, but you have those memories and you realize that they lived a long life and you learn to accept that. And if you lose a spouse or a significant other, that's more traumatizing because you lose the present, you lose all that which you have during your days. But then when you lose a child, you lose the future.
Yeah.
You lose all those future dreams, and you lose the thought that your child is missing out on all those things that are so good in life, raising her daughter.
Yeah.
And so you lose,
Watching her friends grow up,
right,
watching them have babies and get married
all
and
that, and
yeah.
generations, families change. It's an altering event.
Yeah.
So
So how are you, so how will you handle the holidays? Because for me, the holidays are brutal. It's just brutal. Um, how will you, have you created new traditions or how do you remember her around the holidays?
I always remember Amanda around the holidays, and actually when we see her daughter, her name is Ellie. We always make sure that she remembers her mom. We have pictures of her mom. I show videos of her mom. During the holidays, the first holidays were brutal. I really couldn't attend some things, and I just really kind of embarrassingly fell apart in front of family. That first Christmas, it was only a couple months from the death of Amanda. She died in September, and of course, Christmas was right around the corner. Her birthday was right there in November. So those were really, really challenging times. The second time around, I suppressed a lot of the sadness. I wanted to try to enjoy family more. I didn't want to sadden the events. So you kind of live in the shadows of sadness in a sense. Honestly, a bereaved parent will put a mask. It's masking. And so you on the outside, you're enjoying the moment. You're trying to get through the day. But deep down inside, there's that sadness and missing, for me, for Amanda, that, I wish she was there. And
Yeah.
that's the hardest thing. Now, it's been 2 years, and now the holidays are coming up here. And so I'm really looking forward to it more. My stepdaughter has a little baby, and my son has children, my grandchildren. So I just try to look forward and try to enjoy what I have. And I've learned through all of this that you just have to appreciate what you have because there's many people out there that are less fortunate. I have a family, I have other children. And I remember somebody said that to me, Ron, you have other children. And I remember how much that hurt at the
Yeah.
time because that didn't make the pain go away.
Yeah.
I know I have other children. I love them dearly. I love them all the same. And, but still, that wasn't, that was a friend that intended to say something comforting, but your emotions are so magnified
Yeah.
when you're going through grief. That when people say things and do things that aren't expected, you just learn that they mean well, they're compassionate. They may not say that, a lot of people just don't know what to say.
Yeah.
I think the best thing, I've had friends that just have comforted me and my wife. Um, so there's a lot of things I put in my book that will resonate with a mother's point of view also.
Yeah.
I mean,
So tell me, out of all of this, and this has been probably traumatic beyond anything you will ever experience in your life. So you have to ask the question, why? Why me? Why my family? Why Amanda? But in the end, once you go through the stages of grief and you accept that she's no longer here, then you have to look for a deeper meaning. So have you found that? Have you determined why did this happen? Why was I chosen? Why was she chosen? What have I learned from this?
boy, that's a good question, Wendy. It does give you a deeper meaning. I try to live my life now through Amanda. I really try to live my life being more compassionate and giving. I work at the local food kitchen. I enjoy helping people that are less fortunate. Um, so judging people, judging anything is not even on the table anymore. I don't have the energy to judge anybody because it's not my right to judge a person. You just don't know what a person is going through. Um, in a lot of ways, I just feel that I'm more sensitive to so many more things. I get
Yeah.
emotional so much easier than I did before, and I don't mind showing the emotion because it's you just live this life one time, and if you keep suppressing everything, I think in the long run it's more damaging. I think fathers that are strong, they put up a good front for years and years. I think resentment and anger may creep in, and I think it will take longer to heal. You know, losing my daughter is kind of like an amputation of the heart. It
Yeah.
doesn't grow back, and
Yeah.
it's worse than losing an arm or a leg because
Yeah.
it's just an emotion that stays with you forever.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I feel you more than you know. I know I'm going through the same thing, and it is, and for me, it's been about 6 years, but I like you said, you think the first year is the worst, and I think this year is the worst. It's just it's
yeah, I'm so
something,
sorry to hear.
especially around Christmas time and Thanksgiving, especially Christmas. It's horrible.
Yes.
So, that's particularly why I wanted people to reach out to you and to read your book and to let you tell your story because I believe even with me, for my loved one, just listening to people talk about him and
Mhm.
how they knew him and their experiences. And that's another thing I wanted to mention right before I go, because we're at running out of time here. But you mentioned in the book like keeping videos, keeping audio tapes, because I did that. I made a lot of videos, a lot of audio tapes, and it's so priceless. I can't begin to tell people make as many videos and audio tapes of your loved ones because when they're gone, that will be the only thing you hold on to.
That
And I
is
think you said you agreed with that.
that is so true. Technology is so good now because
Hmm.
you have those videos. And I remember looking at those videos early on, and it was very, very difficult. It would create a lot of tears. But now I look at the videos and I smile more often, and I
Yeah.
see her how she is, and they are precious. They're,
Yeah, they
they're
are.
priceless pictures and videos, and I'll be able to show those videos to Amanda's daughter
Yeah.
in the future. And yes, that is something that I would encourage everybody to do. It just takes a while to stabilize. I've done a lot of research, and it really takes 2 to 5 years for a parent to become stable. So,
Yeah.
and sometimes it takes a lot longer. So you don't want to get caught in and stuck in grief. You have to just try to keep moving forward. A friend of mine would say, I would say I'm having a bad day, and he would just say, Ron, just keep trying to move forward. And that's so
Yeah.
true because you can take one step forward and two steps back many times throughout the first few years.
Yeah. Just get up. Just get up out of the bed and just put one foot in front of the other. That's
Do
how
what's
I see
best.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, do what's best for you. Try to take care of your health and your
Yeah.
emotional well-being. I think it's so important. So
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
that would be my message. Yes.
Yeah. So where can people pick up your book?
It's available on Amazon,
Okay.
obviously.com. That's the best place to get. I think it's also on Barnes and Noble and maybe on Walmart. Uh,
Uh-huh.
the easiest place I think would be Amazon. And I
Okay.
would say that it's a good book for bereaved parents to understand the journey and what I did to heal. And it's also good for non-bereaved parents to understand what someone goes through when they lose a child or a spouse or any
Yeah.
or any loss.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, definitely.
there's a place at the end of the book to maybe provide a review or two. I can tell you that out of the 20 or 25 reviews that I have read, it just is such a healing effect for me because I see people there that say, "Oh, I've been through all this. I'm so glad I read your book because I've been through the same thing and I know I'm not going crazy." And
Yeah.
so many people know people that have lost a child or lost a spouse or a significant other, and it just warmed my heart that it's helped them, and that's all I wanted from my book. I don't expect to make a profit from my book. That's not the intent. It's really just a penny's profit. I try,
Okay.
and so it's. I just really want people to get it and read through it and understand that it's a long journey, but in the end, there's a lot of light ahead where you can
Yeah.
heal and live your life in a different way,
Yeah.
in a more meaningful way. So
Yeah. Well, thank you. So we have about 1 minute. I just wanted to thank you and say the book, as I mentioned, is so powerful and so raw and so helpful. For me and for other people, it's going to be such a helpful, healing way to grieve and to learn how to grieve and get through your pain. So we wish you well, and we thank you for coming on the DC Spotlight.
thank you,
And I hope
Wendy.
your holidays are filled with joy and great memories of your daughter. And we wish you success with your book. Thank you for coming on.
I hope you have a good holiday also.
Thank
And
you. Thank you. So you
thank
have a
you very
good
much. I
holiday.
feel privileged and honored that you asked for this interview. I really appreciate it. Thank you very
Yeah,
much, Wendy.
you're welcome. You're welcome. And good luck to you and your family.
Okay, thank you. Same to you. Thank you very
All
much.
righty.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.